It has been a very rainy day today, which has been lovely. I feel like I've kind of needed a bit of a break from the garden, and also I think the plants just needed it as well. So I'm really glad that the weather has been like this today. I don't think I'm going to get too much gardening done today, but I still wanted to bring you along with me for my week in the garden. I'm just going to share like little bits here and there of what I get up to. I definitely have to do some work down in the flower farm this week, like resetting some of the beds, and also just with all this rain, the weeds are going crazy in the cottage garden, so I need to tidy up a few things. So if you do like these kind of garden with me style videos or weekly vlogs, then definitely give this video a like so that I know that you like this kind of content, or leave me a comment down in the comment section of what you're getting up to in your garden this week. And I will share just little bits of what I get up to each day this week of running our backyard flower farm and just doing a little bit of garden work around the property. The main job that I wanted to get done today is just go and feed some of the worms. So I have some food scraps here just from the fridge. I like to feed my worms pretty much anything that doesn't really have any seeds in it, just because I don't want the worm castings to then self-seed and grow plants wherever I place the worm castings. So I have lots of watermelon, tea leaves, and other little bits and things from the kitchen in here. I'm going to go feed them, and I'm going to grab some sugarcane mulch as well to lay over the top of this. They all need a little bit of a boost of some carbon right now, so yeah, that's my job for today. And then I want to go inside, make some bread, and just get cozy, because this weather is grab a book, grab a cup of tea, put the oven on and bake something kind of weather. So I'm going to talk you through a lot of this video to just chat through what I'm doing throughout the week, but I'm starting here with my worm farms. Now I have about 5 worm farms and I absolutely love them. I use worm castings all the time for fertilizing the garden, and I just truly think they're one of the best things that you can have if you have a garden, particularly people with apartment gardens or areas where you don't physically have the space or the ability to have in-ground composts or anything like that. I think worm farms are brilliant. What I'm doing here is I just added quite a lot of carbon to this worm farm. This is actually where we compost all of our pet waste. So things that come out of the kitty litter go in here. And I found this is just the best way for us to deal with things that come out of the kitty litter. There's no smell. It's really actually pretty clean. And then I can use all of these worm castings on things like fruit trees, the native plants, and a lot of the flowers where I'm growing all of my flowers that I'm not intending to use as edible flowers. I use the worm castings around those garden beds, and yeah, it's completely fine. As you can see, I haven't just added things that come from the kitty litter in here. I add food scraps and coffee grounds and just make it a really nice diverse worm farm, so that the worm castings are going to be as nutritious as possible for the plants to uptake that. This is another worm farm that I have, and this is actually just for food scraps. And you can see here, it's not looking fantastic. This is not really what you want your worm farm to be looking like. This means that there's too much nitrogen and too much wet materials. You need to be adding more dry materials, carbon-rich materials like this sugarcane mulch that I have here. You could also see that a lot of the food scraps weren't even really decomposing. They were just sitting on the surface, and the worms really need layers and really need to be under something to consume whatever it is you're putting into the worm farm. So that's why I always like to have either some cardboard on top or some sugarcane mulch, something that is really high in carbon, because then the worms are going to start actually eating what's underneath that material. Now we're switching to the kitchen here and I'm just making some bread. I didn't really decide to do any more work on this day, but I thought I would just show you what the bread is that I've been making lately. I keep it really simple and I am just almost about to get into sourdough. I've been a little overwhelmed at that, but I have decided to just stick with this recipe for now, which is a really simple bread recipe that I usually have with like soups or dinners or really anything. It's just really easy and you don't actually need to knead this recipe. So I start out with 430 grams of flour. I use a combination of that bread flour and spelt flour. Then I do about 2 teaspoons of salt and 2 teaspoons of baker's yeast. And then I mix that all up and add in about 1.5 cups of room temperature water. And then I just mix that all up and I let this rise for about 2 hours or so. I'll leave the link to this bread recipe in the description box. It's about 2 to 3 hours I let it rise, and then I pop it in the fridge for up to 3 days. It kind of naturally ferments in the fridge a little bit, and this is the bread loaves that it made. It usually makes about 2. I think the yeast that I had was a little old, so they didn't rise as much, but it's a really delicious recipe and I wanted to share with you all because I know some of you have been asking about recipes and things like that, so I've decided to include a few more in this video. The next day I was really trying to take it easy, and I suppose that's also why I've been making more things in the kitchen and just wanting to slow down a little bit because this is such a busy time of the year. But something that I do on days when I am really tired or overwhelmed is I just start some seeds. I take 1 tray or a few trays, fill them up with some potting mix, and then start some seeds. I always try and do something each day to work towards my goals, and having flowers is obviously one of my goals at the moment with the flower farm. So I wanted to start some sunflower seeds, and I'm doing this about every 2 to 3 weeks or so. I'm starting a succession of sunflower seeds. These ones here were the Lemon Rush sunflowers, one of my favorites and one that I will always grow, I think. But yeah, I do like to start a lot of my sunflowers from seed and then plant them out just to make sure that I can actually have them all growing, because we have a lot of little bandicoots that like to dig up all of the seeds. And then I wanted to include just a few shots of all of the beautiful dahlias because I am loving coming down and seeing these in the garden lately. They're so stunning and they really haven't been affected by like any diseases so far. So far I am very impressed with these. Something else I've been trying to keep on top of is harvesting all of the cucumbers from the garden. I had a few random plants growing in and amongst here because I used homemade compost to feed the soil. So you could see I'm pulling out some random tomatoes and a pumpkin vine that I really don't want growing throughout my cottage garden. This garden brings me so much joy and I have loved all of the produce that we've been harvesting from here. We've been picking so many tomatoes and herbs and now cucumbers and lots of flowers as well. I have been really loving this variety. I think it's the burpless variety of cucumber. It's either that or Market More, but I really have been enjoying this, and I've harvested so many cucumbers. Like every second day I'm coming out here and picking cucumbers. So I also just wanted to include one of my favorite cucumber recipes that I've been loving in this video. This is the little harvest here from this day, and I'm actually picking a lot of these at the right size. Usually I let them go a little bit too far, but yeah, it's easy to do that if you just leave the cucumbers for a day or two. Now, I came across this recipe on, I think it was on Instagram or TikTok, one of those. I'm not really on TikTok a lot, but I do like to get recipe inspiration over there. And I saw this recipe and I made it, and I have been eating it so much. So basically, you take as many cucumbers as you like and then adjust the recipe. I've included a rough one in the description box, but basically you just chop up your cucumbers however you would like. I'm adding about like a tablespoon or maybe a teaspoon of salt. I just eyeball a lot of this, and I'm going to let the cucumbers sit in that, and that's going to help draw out any moisture. And while I do that, I like to add red onion to this, but you can add like shallots or really anything to this salad. It's very versatile. And the dressing is super easy. You basically want like a teaspoon or 1 clove of garlic. I am just using minced garlic for this. Some kind of rice wine vinegar. I just have sushi seasoning, which is kind of the same thing, and add in about 2 tablespoons of that, same as soy sauce. I really like the sushi soy sauce. It just has that, I think it's that umami flavor. I really like it. Also some sesame oil, about 2 teaspoons of that. You'll have to just read the ingredients of the recipe, and I just add a lot of these things to taste. And then about 2 teaspoons of brown sugar and as much chili flakes as you would like. These really do make the recipe taste super delicious, and just mix it all up and give it a taste. I actually found that this one needed a little bit more vinegar to it, so I'm adding some apple cider vinegar to this, but you can really use whatever you have on hand. And then just give the cucumbers a drain, and I rinse these thoroughly underwater because you don't want excess salt on the cucumbers. They will taste a little salty, as they would have uptaken a little bit of that salt. And then just add everything in, so all of the onions and the dressing, and mix it up. I would love to know if you've tried this recipe and what you think. I'm sorry, it was a very loosely based recipe, but adapt as you need. I'll put the link to the actual recipe down below, but I would love to know if you have any other good recipes for using excess cucumbers that are coming out of the garden. We are having a lot of pickles and making that, but sometimes I just prefer to eat them fresh and incorporate them into my everyday meals. I've also been adding some to smoothies as well, but if you have any ideas, let me know, but also let me know if you try this, because as you can see, it's delicious. Another day this week, I wanted to plant some more plants in the garden. Now I have this little back area of the property where I've been planting some native trees just to get a little bit of canopy and bring some more habitat to this area. I'm choosing really fast growing trees like these bleeding heart trees, which are one of my favorite native plants of the area. I just love the canopy that they provide. These ones I planted last year, and they've been growing so quickly with such beautiful leaves, and this area is going to be so pretty when they grow up. They don't last for too long, I think around maybe like 8 to 12 years or so on average maybe, and they don't grow too high as well. I did have a coda planted here before, but sadly that didn't make it with some of the hot days that we had in early summer, but I think the bleeding heart is going to look really nice here. I actually saved this one from a job that I was working on when I was working with Whitbird Environmental doing some garden work, so I wanted to save a few because they were going to be pulled out anyway, and now they can grow and be happy in my garden. I would really encourage you to have a look around in your space, even if you have a small garden or a small area or even an apartment garden, and find some native plants that you like the look of, or you like the flowers or the benefits that they're going to bring to nature around you. It's something that brings me like immense joy seeing birds land on trees that I've planted. I just watch from the window here, actually from where I'm sitting filming this, out to the cottage garden, and the other day I saw a bird that landed on one of the trees that I'd planted, and it was looking around for some food, some little bugs and worms, and I just thought to myself, it would not have been there if I didn't plant that tree. And it's such a rewarding feeling to have animals and birds and see pollinators around and just see nature how it's supposed to be. Obviously I'm not restoring it to like the native ecosystem around here, but I'm still providing at least some habitat for birds, and trees and bushes and shrubs are the best way to do that. So I'm also planting here a coastal rosemary, which is another one of my favorites, and I'm planting a lot of plants alongside the fence here next to the flower garden and the neighbors, just because we like there's a chain link fence between us, and I wanted a little bit more privacy when I'm coming down to the flower garden. I really like to just go on a walk in the garden, and sometimes I feel a little bit exposed from all of the neighbors. We really like our neighbors though, so they're lovely people, the ones directly next to us on either side, but I do sometimes just like to walk around with a cup of coffee, not having to worry like if anyone is looking at me, and I would really just like a little bit more privacy. So I'm planting things like the coastal rosemary. Here I'm showing a Melaleuca incana, which is another one of my favorites, and will kind of spread out and I can hedge it down. And also we have a Christmas bush here, which is looking a little sad, but I think it got caught by one of the mowers, so it's hopefully going to bounce back. But then we've got some feijoa trees up here, so hopefully maybe next year we will have some fruit from these. But yeah, they were very, very small when I planted them, and they're slowly starting to take shape now. So it's all looking really beautiful, the flower farm, and I've been loving just coming down here and yeah, looking at all of the beautiful flowers and taking it all in, particularly after the things that have happened with my Ulma passing. Gardening has just been such a joy and has really been helping me go through all of the feelings and emotions, and gives me a lot of purpose in life, and is something that I would really like to do a video on, because there's been some events in my life where I really needed something and needed to rely on just something to get me through. So I wanted to do a video on that eventually, so I'll chat more about that eventually. But anyway, here what I'm doing is I am just tidying up some of these garden beds. As you can see, they've got a little bit wild, and this is where I had some of my sunflowers planted, so I'm just trying to reset the beds, and I thought I would just show you how I like to reset the flower garden beds. And this area really does need a little bit of work, but the best way and the easiest way for me, without like getting in there and weeding all of the garden beds, I actually just like to lay some cardboard over the garden beds, as well as some of the pathways if there's too many weeds. I leave this be even for a few days, and the worms and bugs underneath start to work their magic and start to break up everything that is below the cardboard. It's a really good way to just control weeds, and we always have cardboard in the house. You can see here, this is one of them that I had done and saw that the soil was so healthy below. So yeah, I also use just black plastic, as you can see here, to keep the weeds down, and it's a really nice way to just have a little bit of lower maintenance with the garden and easier weed control. So this is actually a few days later. I had a bit of a break from filming, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like now after I had tidied up the pincushion flowers, mulched some of the pathways, and I actually planted out this bed with some zinnias. So I'm trying some of the zinnias in here, and I'll see how they go. I don't know if I planted them too late or not, but they should be fine. I did this last year and they worked okay, so yeah, we'll see how we go. But it's looking so much neater now and tidy, and it's not just about being neat and tidy obviously in a flower garden, but I find this really does help the soil out a lot, and is something that I am really going to be prioritizing moving into winter, is making sure any beds that I don't have things planted in, that I'm going to have them covered by either the cardboard or the black plastic. The last job that I worked on this week was dealing with the agapanthus that we have in the garden. Now I know a lot of people love this plant, but it is actually considered an environmental weed in a lot of areas in Australia, where it's kind of been naturalizing in forest margins and waterways. And it's a plant I really don't love to have in the garden, but it's here, it's kind of naturalized throughout, so I really needed to just take care of it and snip off any of the seed heads that were forming. Ideally, I'd really like to remove this plant from my garden. That's a big job though, and I also know a lot of other people have this in their yards, so I just wanted to show you just a really easy way that you can minimize the spread of this plant, and that's just by removing the seed heads from it when it goes to flower. Ideally, you want to chop these off right after it's flowered so that the seeds don't have enough time to mature. I left it a little bit long, but I am going to get rid of these. I just compost these and I find they don't actually re-sprout, so I don't have a problem composting these because my compost bin gets to a really high temperature. But do make sure that you dispose of these in a responsible way. You can also find sterile varieties of this plant if you really love it. So make sure to have a look out for that, and yeah, just be responsible in your garden. I know a lot of people love these plants, so you can definitely have it in your garden, but I do think we really do need to be responsible about the potential problems that garden escapees can have on our surrounding environments. This plant in particular, it just loves to grow in this area, and I have seen it on the sides of the roads around, and while it's not taking over an entire ecosystem, it's not categorized as like a weed of national significance, it still does pose a serious threat to other plants that have similar characteristics to that are native, where this will often grow in place of those other plants that are really crucial for native wildlife. So consider this just a gentle reminder to just be familiar with all of the plants in your garden and the potential that they might have on your broader surrounding ecosystem, because it's something that we can easily forget about. I'm definitely not perfect with this, but it's something that I do like to keep in mind in my garden. Good morning everyone, it's a few days later now and I just wanted to do an outro to this video. Just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing just a little bit of what I got up to in the garden over the last week or so. And also a massive thank you for all of the lovely comments that I received on my last video. It really meant a lot to me and it was so nice to read all of those beautiful comments, so thank you so much for that. Let me know if there is anything that you would like to see from me in terms of videos. I'm always taking like ideas and suggestions for future content, so I would love to know if you have any ideas. I think in an upcoming video I'm definitely going to discuss just everything that I'm planting and sowing at this time of the year. So if that's something you'd like to see, please do let me know. But I am a little bit more active over on Instagram. At times I kind of go up and down with social media, but I do try and post over there whenever I'm asking for like advice and things like that. So if you want to follow me at The Nature Patch, I am over on Instagram there. And I also have an Instagram page called The Patch in Bloom, which is specifically my flower page where I share all of the available products that I have. So yeah, I'm trying to create a little bit more content over there. But just wanted to come in here and say goodbye and say thank you for watching this video. If you want to see extra content, I'm actually finishing up another video today that's going up on my Patreon channel. If you want to head over there, I have a few extra videos over there, and it's just a way to support me, to help me continue making these videos. But any kind of interaction with the videos, like liking, commenting and sharing, really does help me out and is also completely free for you, and just helps me get this content out there a little bit more, because I do try and put a lot of time and effort into these videos for you. Making these videos is truly so important to me and my mental health, and I love doing it. So just, yeah, thank you for being here. I am going to head inside, finish off my morning cup of coffee, and then I think today I'm going to start to plant some seeds that I'm going to be planting over the next few weeks. Let me know what you're up to in your garden at the moment, and I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are in the world. And until my next one, happy gardening, everyone.